Greetings and salutations, internet distance. It is Wolfphototech, and here we are with another delightful video. This time it is the Starfinder First Edition Critical Fumble deck from Paizo Publishing. This deck is just a standard size card deck. It contains quite a few cards, in fact. It's on the front. 53 cards. It MSRP's, where is that? $10.99, which is actually a really good price for a card deck this size, compared to some of the other specialty card sets that Paizo sells. This is actually pretty cheap. This classification is in the middle category of my three categories of card decks. There are player aids or game master aid decks where you buy them, the type 1, and they help you play the game more efficiently or run the game more efficiently. Then there's the Type 2 decks, which add mechanics to the game system that are not a part of the core rules. However, they can add interesting layers of flavor to a game. And then there's the third type, which are decks that are entirely optional, much like the second type. However, they don't serve a strong purpose in the set, and all it takes for you to do is learn a few basic skills in game mastering, and they become either completely worthless or actually eat up more time than they're worth using. And there's a few of these decks that the Type 3s that Paizo produces. This is what happens when you hire tons and tons of freelance workers and you try to churn out a lot of products. Eventually, you end up running into a situation where you end up at the back end of like Pathfinder First Edition, where you have a lot of products, and then you have some products that are just some classes or features or products that are super busted. Same thing happens with Dungeons and Dragons, D&D 3.5, Dungeons & Dragons 4th Edition, Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. You get some kind of errors or mechanical anomalies when combined together creates a completely busted character, or in reverse creates trap options that basically makes your character completely useless. This is a critical fumble deck. In each and every one of these decks, all these Paizo decks will typically have a rules card, particularly Type 2 and Type 3. All Type 2 and Type 3 decks have a special rules card because they are not a part of the core rules. They are post-core rules. So they were created after the core rules were created, and there is an extra mechanic system that's slapped on top. So there you go. There are a few ways to use these special decks, and they will outline various options on this card. And as an example, you'll have a piece of artwork on the backside. This is a space goblin that has having a bad day, and this is two examples of what kind of results you can have. Now, when you draw one of these cards, when you have a critical fumble, depending on the type of damage you are dealing, say like you're using energy damage or a type of energy weapon or attack, or kinetic or spell or explosive, extreme blow, etc., etc. When you draw this card, whatever type is determined on the card. So if you're using a kinetic energy attack like a melee sword or kinetic round arcane kind of weaponry, you'll end up using this option on your fumble deck, which would be you take a -5 penalty to intelligence checks and intelligence-based skill checks until healed, and so forth. And then another example of that would be this one right here. Same thing, kinetic energy. You take a -2 penalty to intelligence and wisdom and charisma-based ability checks and skills until you healed. And then I'll show you a third one. You contract a filth fever. Fortitude negates core rule. So if there's a mechanic that you need to look up, they'll oftentimes put the page number in the book. that you need to look it up in, and so forth. So each one of these cards has a different combination of characteristics or effects that are tacked on to your critical fumble. Now, this is an addendum onto your core system. By the way, I point out that there's an OGL card in the back here. And in the future, there'll be an orc card or something like that. But in the case of the critical fumble deck, players will be all happy for you, the game master, to be drawing from these cards, but not so much for themselves. The best way to integrate a critical fumble deck is also to buy the critical hit deck and use that as well when using the critical fumble deck. However, you could also just use the critical fumble deck as on its own. So, generally, players, in the case of the critical hit deck, are happy when you let them use it, but you don't use it yourself as a game master. And when you're game mastering, if you're using a critical fumble deck, they're more happy that the game master is using it, but not them. So, there you go. This is one of those things you really just end up having to add in the critical hit deck as well. I would advise to wait until you've ran Pathfinder 2nd Edition or Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remaster before including the critical hit deck to your games or your campaigns. Considering that it is $10.99 and it's a nice little addendum that adds a little flavor, it would be awesome. It's important to note that Pathfinder 2nd Edition is very exact with its encounter math, and it's very team build oriented system. So I would advise against including a critical fumble deck or any critical fumble system bolted onto the standard system before your players have had more than one or two campaigns and have become used to playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition and has worked in team tactics into their game. Because even with the base rules of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, even when you're going at exactly their encounter level, that the system can come off as being exceedingly hard to play until they get over being mountains of damage and HP. This is common with people who start from Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. By the way, I was talking about Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and this is Starfinder. Starfinder, it applies the same, but it's not as exact as Pathfinder 2nd Edition. But it still applies. You want to wait to use a fumble deck until the players have gotten used to the system and they worked into the pattern of play, and you want to throw a little extra spice in. These critical fumble decks are very well thought out. Some of them are a little more extreme. Some of the effects are a little more extreme and can cause not terribly pleasant moments. Every game master should only really use these with groups that they have game mastered for some time, and they've generally gotten to know their players' tolerance level for being screwed over. Also, generally, if you are to use a critical fumble deck, you ask the players at the beginning in session 0 whether it is okay that they would want to use a critical fumble deck, and you would show them several cards from it. That way they can assess the situation after they've played a couple campaigns and say, yes, I'm good with this. It'll spice up the game. The critical hit deck, automatically awesome. Some addition. It will definitely increase the power level of the players. This will decrease the power level of the players. So keep that in mind yet again. These are always typically very well thought out. So they rank right around that 3.5, 3.75 range. And considering that they're cheap, that's awesome. There's, depending on your group, it might be a 4-star or a 4.25 star item. So there you go. I hope you have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful weekend, a magnificent month. And if you enjoy these videos, please leave a like, subscribe, and share, and put in playlist. all those things help the channel. I try to show off as much variety as possible. So have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful week, and a magnificent month yet again, and see you next time. Ciao.